Don't kill me, human. I'll keep your bed warm. The alien warrior pleaded on her knees. We open in a world made of nothing but frost and silence, a place where the snow never melts and the cold gets into your bones before it ever touches your skin. The war on Arctyron isn't loud anymore. It's just the wind and the corpses. Commander Dax Virel stands alone on a plateau where the ground is a sheet of white glass reflecting a sky so pale it looks unfinished. Around him, the aftermath of the skirmish sprawls like discarded history enemy bodies, strewn in awkward silence, steam still rising from some of the fresher wounds. But one of them isn't dead. She kneels in the center, blood dripping from a gash across her side. Her armor is cracked, one shoulder bare to the wind. But her back is straight, head high. She stares at Virel with eyes the color of old iron. And then she speaks. "Don't kill me, human. I'll keep your bed warm." That sentence lands harder than the artillery. The squad behind Virel falls silent. One soldier chokes on a laugh and immediately regrets it. Dax doesn't speak, doesn't blink. He just watches her. Selari Nox. That's the name his helmet HUD confirms after a quick scan. Arctyron blood. Rank Fireblade second. Not high ranking, not important. But her voice doesn't waver. That sentence, it's not desperation. It's not a joke. It's ceremonial. And that's what makes Virel hesitate, because something in his gut says this isn't about sex or servitude. It's a surrender, but not the kind they teach you at war college. He steps closer. Snow crunches under his boots. The wind yanks at his scarf like a toddler with questions. "You're injured," he says flatly. "Obviously," Selari replies. Her breath mists the air like ghost fire. "You expect mercy, I expect logic," she says. "I'm an asset." That's what clinches it. Not the appeal, not the strange vow, but the strategic honesty. It sounds familiar. "Bag her," he says to his squad. "Bring her in alive." A few of them shoot him questioning looks, but none dare speak. Not when he uses that tone. Selari doesn't resist as they bind her wrists. Doesn't even flinch. But as they start walking, she stumbles. Virel catches her elbow. It's brief, but her skin is warm, unnaturally so. He files it away, along with the phrase, "I'll keep your bed warm." He doesn't believe in omens, but this one, it's going to stick with him. The trek back to base takes 6 hours on foot. Arctyron's terrain is a cruel parody of Earth's Arctic poles, but spiked with ridges and magnetic flares that mess with nav gear. The squad walks in tight formation. Selari stays quiet for most of it until the sun starts to fall. Then she speaks. "You didn't ask what it meant." Virel doesn't look at her. Didn't have to. "You assumed it was seduction," she says. "It's not." "You offered warmth," he replies. "Not your body." She glances over. "You do understand." He nods. A symbolic act. Ritualized surrender. "Yes," she says. "Among my people, when the blood feud is lost, the defeated offer warmth as trust. Only someone dishonorable would violate that trust." He eyes her sidelong. "And yet you offered it to me. Enemy, invader. I offered it to the only person who didn't shoot first." That earns a dry, humorless chuckle. "That's a low bar. Better a low bar than none." One of the squad grunts. "Can we get a translator on her sass?" Virel ignores them. He's too busy watching how Selari walks, how she doesn't limp despite the wound, how her gaze never drops. She might be technically in custody, but she isn't broken. When they finally reach the base, crouched beneath a cliffside, half built into the ice, Virel has her escorted to medical, then secured in the debrief room. But he lingers outside the door for just a second longer than necessary. There's something in her posture, the way she looks at the sterile lights, like she's not just behind enemy lines, like she's been here before. He doesn't know it yet, but he's just opened the door to something vast, not just a cultural misunderstanding or a spy's gambit, something older, something that has nothing to do with winning a war. Later, when he sits at his desk with his boots still half covered in snow, the sentence replays itself in his mind like a radio left on, "Don't kill me, human. I'll keep your bed warm." And for the first time since the invasion began, Commander Dax Virel feels something other than cold. Virel sat alone in the mess, half listening to the hum of the heating units and the faint clink of someone stirring synthetic creamer into coffee. He wasn't hungry, hadn't been for days, but he needed a place to think. Away from brass, away from chatter, away from her. Selari Nox. She was in medical bandaged up isolated under 2 layers of decontamination and one annoyed nurse. Not restrained. That was the weird part. She'd said something that stuck with him. You can't shackle a vow. It turns it into slavery, and he'd let it slide. Why he took a sip of lukewarm coffee and tried to figure that out. That's when the door hissed open and a medic stepped in with a data pad. She's clear, vitals stable, and apparently she told Dr. Pyle that our antiseptics smell like fear. Virel smirked. Sounds about right. She also requested a heat stone. Now that made him raise a brow. A what cultural thing, the medic said. Little ceramic thing filled with reactive minerals. Arctyronians use them when sleeping alone. Symbol of loyalty, I guess. Give her one, he said. But make it Earth standard. Let's see how she handles foam tech. The medic blinked, shrugged, and left. Back in her room, Selari cradled the object with a strange reverence. Not gratitude. More like familiarity. Was this the first time you've done this? Virel asked as he entered, arms crossed. She didn't look up. Been warm many times. First time it was to an enemy, though. He stepped closer. Her room was plain, no bed, just a reclining foam bench and a single surveillance orb blinking red in the corner. You say that word like it means something sacred. Because it does, she said. We're not a species built for touch. Our planet doesn't allow it. Too cold. Too dangerous. So when we do, we remember. He considered that. So when you offered warmth, you were offering memory. She finally looked up at him. Exactly. That landed harder than he wanted to admit. You said your father sent you as bait. Selari's expression didn't change, but the heat in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. High Marshal Orvin Rao, architect of the Glacier Wall campaign, believes in sacrifice for dominance. He arranged the entire flank to fail so the humans would waste resources capturing me. You're a decoy, Virel said quietly. She gave a humorless smile. A well-lit one. That made something twist in his gut. Not sympathy, not yet, but something adjacent. So what happens now, he asked. You interrogate me, she said. You dig for intel. I give you some truths, some lies. You feel clever. I feel like an algorithm. Then eventually someone trades me for a cargo freighter full of frozen wheat, and I vanish into a penal mine. That your plan? No. That's just the script. And if I wanted to rip up the script, Selari tilted her head. Then I'd ask if you're the kind of human who believes in new endings. Virel didn't respond, but he didn't leave either. She studied him, fingers still on the now warm stone. You're different, she said. You didn't kill me. You didn't demand anything crude. You ask questions. That's rare in war. I ask questions because I like answers, he said. No, she replied. You ask questions because part of you isn't sure you're the good guys. Silence. Then Virel turned to leave. But at the door he paused. If I let you roam the base, supervised, would you run? No, she said without hesitation. Why not? Because I've already chosen my warmth. He didn't look back, but he didn't need to. Outside, the wind had picked up again, throwing snow against the metal siding in erratic pulses. Inside, Dax Virel stared out at the horizon through the frost-lined window, thinking about loyalty, sacrifice, and the strange way Selari said the word memory. This wasn't the enemy he'd trained for. She was smart, dangerous, and somehow just barely human. Later that night, he watched her on the monitor. She was asleep, curled slightly, hands wrapped around the heat stone like it held a secret. And maybe it did, because in all his years of battle, he'd never seen an enemy sleep that peacefully. It was 500 when the encrypted signal hit the comms array, a ripple of static, then a tone that didn't match any coalition frequency, deep, hollow, resonant, like it had been shaped in a cavern. Most operators would have flagged it for deletion, but the AI flagged it for Selari Nox. Dax Virel read the summary on his HUD and felt the first real chill of the day. Not weather chill, spine chill. He marched straight to the intel office, boots thudding with sharp, unforgiving rhythm. The walls still smelled faintly of deicer and recycled air, but Virel barely noticed. Inside, the room hummed with quiet tension. 2 technicians glanced up, then down again. Play it, he said. A whisper translated, "They watch the cold but not the cracks. Heat rises, and then silence." Virel frowned. The sentence meant nothing, which meant it meant something. "Source," he asked. The tech shrugged. "We traced it to the southern ridgeline. No known outpost, no repeat transmission." He didn't like it, not one bit. Selari wasn't in her room when he got there. That set off alarms. Not literal ones, his team wasn't dumb enough to panic, but that tight, itchy feeling under the ribs. That was new. She was on the roof, wrapped in a thermal cloak, standing barefooted in -20 degrees, gazing at the sky. "You know you have a habit of ignoring doors," he said, stepping up behind her. She didn't turn around. Doors are symbolic on Arctyron. They're declarations of power. I prefer cracks. That's supposed to be philosophical or just annoying, both. He exhaled, watching his breath fog. "We got a transmission. Not ours, not yours. Directed to you." That made her glance sideways. "What did it say?" He repeated it. Selari's face remained calm, but her fingers twitched, tiny, involuntary. "The kind you see in soldiers remembering something classified." "That's not a message," she said. "That's a code phrase." From whom she hesitated. "I don't know, but it's ancient dialect, used only in Frostvow circles, which are extinct, or supposed to be." He narrowed his eyes. "You're telling me someone in a dead faction just sent you a secret message through a frozen ridge?" "I'm telling you," she said, turning to face him, "someone wants me to remember something I'm not supposed to." The sky above them shimmered with the low bands of Arctyron's magnetic clouds. For a second, they both stared up, neither speaking. Then she said, "I want to find the source." Virel folded his arms. "You want to leave the base, with me, to track a ghost message from a faction that doesn't exist?" "Yes." "And your reasoning, because you already suspect the war isn't what it looks like, and because deep down you want to know if your side is being played." He didn't answer. "Because she wasn't wrong. By 0700, he had them both registered for external recon. Admiral Kell would raise hell if she found out, but he had 2 hours before the morning report hit her desk. He found her packing rations in the ready room, stuffing heat biscuits and protein strips into a thermal pouch. "You're not a prisoner anymore," he said. She glanced up. "I was never a prisoner. I was a question mark." He smirked. "Well, question mark, grab a rifle. And wear boots this time." She looked down at her bare feet. "They dull my perception." "I dull people too," he said. "Still got to wear a uniform. They move fast snow runners over rock ice, skimming across frost fields like ghosts." The southern ridge rose jagged ahead, sun reflecting off its peaks in blinding sheets. Virel had barely known her 3 days, but something about this mission about her made his instincts hum in stereo. It wasn't attraction, not exactly. It was gravity. Like her presence made everything feel heavier and lighter at once. By midday, they reached the source point. Nothing there. Just a cracked ice wall and an old Arctyron outpost long abandoned. Virel ran a scan. Faint energy. Weird harmonics. Selari touched the wall, and it opened. Not with a mechanical groan, but with silence. Ice folding inward like paper. Behind it, a tunnel lined with crystal veins. Pulsing. They stepped inside. The air was warmer, strangely so, and beneath their boots the ground pulsed faintly. Selari stopped suddenly. Her breath caught. Virel reached for his sidearm. What? She shook her head. "Nothing. Just, it feels familiar." The tunnel led to a chamber, and in it a console. Old tech. Pre-coalition. Maybe even prehistory. Selari moved first. Her hand hovered above a panel, and the console lit up. Virel muttered, "So much for not being important." She looked over the light casting gold in her silver eyes. "I told you," she whispered. "I was never just bait." The cold outside couldn't follow them here. Inside the ancient chamber, heat radiated, softly emanating from the walls themselves, humming low like a lullaby sung by a dying machine. The air smelled faintly metallic but clean. Too clean for something buried beneath centuries of ice. Selari knelt by the console, fingers grazing its surface as if it might speak back. Dax Virel stood a few paces away, one hand on his sidearm, not out of distrust but habit. This place tickled the part of his brain that handled war instincts and bedtime stories alike. "Why is it warm?" he asked. Selari looked up, something like awe softening her features. It's not warmth like yours. It's memory. The system recognizes biological resonance, heartbeat patterns, ancestral echoes. Your people built this. She shook her head. No, we inherited it, like squatters in an old cathedral. Virel's breath fogged in the warm air, betraying just how cold he'd been moments ago. He crouched beside her. What does it do depends, she said. On who asks. A soft chime interrupted them. Then movement. From the far end of the chamber, a panel slid open, revealing a second corridor. This one narrower, spiraling downward. We follow it, he asked. Selari nodded. And so they did. The corridor was lit by faint blue sigils along the walls, organic shapes that shifted slowly as they passed, like a sleeping creature dreaming in slow motion. About halfway down, the air thickened. Not humid, more anticipatory. Then they found him. An Arctyron scout slumped against the wall, alive barely. His armor bore the mark of the Frost clans, scorched and cracked. Dried blood crusted one side of his helmet. His breathing rattled. Selari rushed forward, kneeling beside him. Virel. His eyes fluttered open. He looked at her, confused, then at Virel and flinched. Easy, Selari said. You're safe. The scout coughed. No. No one's safe. Virel stepped closer. Who did this to you, Frost? Turned. Not just rebels. Weapon. Ancient. Not ours. Not ours. He gripped Selari's arm. They fed it blood. She froze. What they don't want peace, he gasped. They want heat. And they found it. His head slumped. Dead. Selari sat back, eyes distant. What did he mean? Virel asked. She didn't answer right away. Then our ancestors believed in a machine buried in the ice, something older than language, said it could preserve warmth forever. We thought it was myth. Apparently not. No, she said, standing. And if the Frost clan is trying to feed it, then they're not just trying to win the war. They're trying to rewrite the planet. They move quickly now. Back up the corridor. No longer explorers, now messengers, maybe even fugitives. But just outside the chamber, the storm had arrived. It wasn't a gentle snowfall. This was a whiteout blizzard wind, screaming visibility, zero temperatures that could kill exposed skin in minutes. Virel muttered, of course. They hunkered in a nearby cave, narrow, icy, but defensible. He activated a field heater. Selari collapsed near it, hands trembling slightly. He sat opposite her, watching as her armor steamed. Why are you really here? He asked. She looked at him, exhausted, honest. I was supposed to die, she said. A symbol, but I didn't. And now, I'm not sure what I am. That makes two of us. Silence stretched. The storm howled outside like a living thing. Then she spoke quietly. On Arctyron, warmth is more than heat. It's connection. When we choose someone to keep warm, it's not just comfort. It's memory-making, ritual, vow. He nodded. I figured it wasn't a pickup line. She smiled faintly. You're not as cold as you pretend. I'm colder, he said. I just hide it under sarcasm. They shared a quiet laugh. And in that frozen cave, it echoed like thunder. She shifted, laying her head against the heated pack. I choose you, she whispered. He blinked. You what? I choose peace. Through you. If you walk back into this war with me, I'll follow. You sure know, she admitted. But you're the warmest thing I've found in a long time. He stared at her, unsure what to say. So he said nothing. But he didn't look away. By dawn, the storm was dead, but so was the easy part. The Frost clan camp sat wedged between two ridgelines like a wart no one wanted to admit was growing. Smoke curled from ice vents in lazy spirals, and the air shimmered with defensive heat fields, the kind calibrated to scald flesh without leaving scorch marks. Subtle cruelty. Selari walked ahead, her stance pure Arctyron confidence. Dax Virel followed a step behind his pulse, a calm 72. Despite the rifle hidden beneath his cloak, and the growing suspicion that someone somewhere had seriously underestimated just how theatrical this whole betrayal thing could become. Selari had proposed it in the cave. A false surrender. Reclaim her old badge, play the prodigal warrior returned. They'll let me in, but only if they think you're bait, she'd said. To which Virel had raised an eyebrow. Again with the bait theme. Tradition, she'd smirked. They were allowed entry after a tense identity check and 3 biometric scans. Selari's presence acted like a keycard. Frost soldiers nodded at her like she was royalty. Virel kept his face blank, watching every glance, every twitch of muscle. He counted 12 guards, 3 plasma turrets, 1 malfunctioning drone, and Colonel Dre Kelton. The man was sleaze in uniform. Perfect hair. Too many medals. A grin that looked like it had been practiced in front of a mirror labeled megalomania. Kelton Virel said flatly. Commander Virel Kelton replied. Didn't expect to see you off leash. Or breathing. Selari stepped between them. I found him. Thought he might make good leverage. Kelton smirked. Or a toy. The moment tensed like a coiled spring. But Selari didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned in, voice low. You really think this ends with a negotiation? Kelton blinked. Excuse me. She turned to the crowd of Frost officers. You're all being played. That weapon you're feeding, it doesn't understand loyalty. It only wants heat. Life heat. The more we give, the stronger it gets. Someone laughed. That's myth. Virel stepped forward. Is it because I've seen the machine? I've heard it breathe. That shut them up. Kelton's voice cut through. You broke protocol, Selari. You fraternized with the enemy. I chose peace. You chose weakness. No, she said. I chose memory. And then she dropped her right shoulder. The hidden pulse grenade rolled into the crowd and detonated in a burst of heatless shock. Chaos erupted. Virel moved first rifle up non-lethal rounds, pinging off helmets and armor with pinpoint precision. Selari ducked behind cover, pulling a shock blade from her boot. Arctyron tech glinting like frozen lightning. It was loud, violent, but oddly coordinated. They didn't kill. That was the message. Disable, disarm, dismantle. By the time the dust settled, 5 guards were unconscious, 3 had fled, and Kelton was on the ground groaning half-covered in anti-tech foam. Virel knelt beside him. Who gave the order? Dre Kelton sneered. You're too late. The core's already active. The heat's flowing. Selari joined them, her blade pressed gently against Kelton's throat. Then we turn it off. He laughed. You can't. It's bonded. Neural link. Arctyron DNA only. She leaned closer. Good thing I've got plenty of that. They hauled him up, forced access to the command chamber. There, deep in the ice, pulsed the machine, a swirling lattice of crystal and metal glowing from within, like a star in miniature. Selari stepped forward, closed her eyes, and placed her palm against the node. The room pulsed once, then again, and then the light dimmed. The hum slowed, and the machine slept. She staggered, eyes fluttering open. It's done, she said. Virel caught her before she fell. You okay, tired? But intact. They stood together amid the wreckage of a power too dangerous to name, in a silence that hummed with possibility. And for once, Arctyron wasn't cold. The formal rescue of High Marshal Orvin Raal should have been a triumph, but it didn't feel like one. He was found buried deep beneath the Frost clan's ice compound, sealed inside a reinforced cryovault, barely alive but preserved. His beard was rimed with frost eyes, bloodshot but alert. They said he'd been imprisoned by his own command, those who'd found the machine, and decided he stood in the way of evolution. Selari stood before her father in a chamber that smelled like thawed hope and surgical ethanol. I thought you sent me to die, she said, voice even. I did, he replied. Silence. Then he added, because I believed that death for a symbol was better than life in a broken system. And now I was wrong. That felt too easy. But in the way he held her gaze, tired, unflinching, she saw the cracks, the shame, the flicker of a man learning he wasn't the prophet he'd pretended to be. Admiral Lorna Kale arrived within hours. She stormed into the chamber with her usual click of heels and a face that could make coffee curdle. You disobeyed direct orders, Virel, she said without preamble. I followed the war, he replied. It just led somewhere weird. Kale turned her glare to Selari. And you, traitor or asset, warm Selari said simply. I offered it and it was accepted. Kyle's frown twitched. She wasn't used to metaphors. But Orvin Raal spoke before she could bark more. I will back a ceasefire, full withdrawal of Frost loyalists, decommissioning of weapon sites. Kel raised an eyebrow. And what do you want in return? He looked at his daughter. A future. That was what tipped the balance. A peace accord was signed 2 days later using neural link protocol that made lying physically painful. It was the first interspecies agreement initiated by mutual warmth. The Frost clan's assets were seized. The ancient machine monitored but untouched. Selari insisted it be neither destroyed nor worshipped. It's a mirror, she said, not a god. When the news reached the troops, reactions were mixed. Relief mostly, some confusion. One soldier muttered, "So wait, the whole war ended," because someone wanted to snuggle. Virel didn't correct him. Let them joke. Let them forget how close it had come. At the signing ceremony, snow fell in gentle spirals, Arctyron's version of confetti. Selari wore ceremonial robes woven with old sigils and new patterns. Virel stood beside her in uniform, crisp, freshly pressed. No medals, just presence. As cameras clicked and drones buzzed, she leaned close and whispered, "Don't kill me, human. I'll keep your bed warm." He glanced sideways. "You already do." That night, as the peace beacon was lit and pulsed through the icy sky like a lighthouse built from intention, Selari stood beside him on the observation deck. "You still don't trust easily," she said. "I trust very specifically," he replied, "and I'm getting better at it." They stood in silence, the kind that felt like conversation. Then she said, "Do you know what Arctyron winters used to mean? Something cold and deadly." "No," she replied. They meant pause, a chance to think, a time when even war took a breath. He looked at her, and now, they might mean hope. The lights from the beacon bathed them both in soft gold, and for the first time since the invasion, Dax Virel let himself believe it might last. The machine wasn't done with them. 3 days after the accord back at Coalition Base Harrow, the engineering team cracked the outer shell of one of the smaller control units extracted from the Frost site. It didn't contain fuel schematics or even blueprints. It contained memory. Not digital memory, biological. The kind that pulsed faintly under EM scans the kind that responded to heart rate. Virel watched as Lieutenant Cadre held the device in gloved hands, eyebrows scrunched. "It's dream storage," she said, baffled. "Not data, experiences, partial sensory fragments." Selari stood beside her, arms crossed. She didn't seem surprised. "You already suspected," Virel murmured. She nodded. The ancient builders didn't leave instructions. They left impressions. Heat, comfort, loss. It's not just a power core. It's an archive of emotion. Why? Because to survive here, Arctyronians had to prioritize memory over movement. We didn't build cities. We built legacies in heat. When someone offers warmth, they're giving access to their history. Virel took a breath. "So, when you offered it to me, I gave you my past and agreed to remember yours. It landed different now. Deeper." Cadre interrupted. "There's something else. The fragments, some of them aren't Arctyron. They're human." Selari's head snapped toward her. "Impossible. Unless Cadre said the machine didn't just record you, it recorded everyone it touched, including those from Earth who studied this region before the war. Including," she pointed at the glowing pattern on the console. "Him." Virel blinked. "I've never been here before." "Not physically," Cadre said, "but your heartbeat matches a sequence embedded in one of the fragments. Almost like a hereditary echo." Selari turned to him, expression unreadable. "You carry warmth," he chuckled softly. "I'm practically a radiator." But the implication hung heavy. Some part of him or his lineage had already been here. Later in private, Selari handed him a small crystalline disk. "It's mine," she said. "One of the memory fragments. You can access it with the right reader." "Why give it to me?" "Because your people don't record like we do. You use files. We use feeling. This is everything I was before I met you." He took it, weighing it like it might breathe. "And what are you now?" She smiled, curious. That night he didn't sleep well. The disk pulsed faintly on the desk beside him, a heartbeat that wasn't his, but somehow echoed through his dreams anyway. When he finally dozed off, he dreamed not of war, but of standing on a frozen cliff with Selari holding her hand, as the ice below them hummed with stories neither had told yet. The cold was returning, not the war, not fear, just the weather. Arctyron's winter didn't end with treaties. Snow still fell, the winds still cut like blades, and outposts still crackled under stress-tested heaters. But inside Base Harrow, something had changed. Warmth wasn't scarce anymore. It had been chosen. Selari stood on the outer deck shoulders, wrapped in a synth-hide cloak, her breath making soft halos in the air. She wasn't supposed to be up here, technically still a diplomatic guest. But no one stopped her anymore. Not even the rookie guards who once flinched when she walked by. Virel joined her, coffee in one hand, scarf wrapped haphazardly around his neck. "You've learned to accessorize," she said. "I call this look accidental hypothermia chic," he replied. She smiled. He loved that smile. It didn't ask for anything. It just existed. Like heat from a fire that wasn't trying to impress anyone. They stood in silence, watching the aurora streak lazily across the sky. Pale green mixed with dusty violet, a cosmic watercolor in motion. "I read your memory disk," he said finally. Selari didn't react immediately. "And there's a sequence where you're a child, huddled against a frost tree, singing. Old Arctyron lullaby," she said. "The only warmth in my clan was what we stole from myth." He looked at her. "You made myth feel personal." She turned to him, eyes softer than he'd ever seen them. "You made war feel optional." Neither spoke for a long time. "Then you ever get tired of the metaphor thing?" Virel asked. "I do not." "Of course not." They chuckled. And then it happened, small, unplanned. She stepped closer and he let her. Their shoulders touched. Her hand found his, slow but certain. "This isn't a vow," she whispered. "Good," he said, "because I'm terrible at vows." "But it could be memory," she added. His heart kicked once. "Then let's make one worth remembering." They stood like that, hands linked, breath, shared heat exchanged, while above them Arctyron spun slowly beneath its colored sky. And somewhere deep in the base, the ancient memory machine recorded a new entry. No battle, no command, just two beings silent and together. That night in quarters warmer than protocol allowed Selari trace the scars on his arm like she was reading a map. He traced the ridges on her spine, following them like constellations. Nothing explicit, just contact, connection. The space between warmth and intimacy where meaning lived without permission. And when they finally drifted to sleep, their heat stones forgotten on the floor, neither dreamed of war. Just of waking up. The mission request came quietly. Buried in a string of logistic updates and maintenance reports, it looked harmless. A delegation needed to be escorted to the outer plateau. Neutral ground, unarmed, observers only. Selari read it twice, then once more. "Someone wants us back where it started," she said, handing the tablet to Virel. He scanned it. "Convenient. Or a trap." He sighed. That old classic. Still they accepted. No weapons, no backup. Just a shuttle, a pilot named Cass, with a mustache clearly engineered for comic relief, and two envoys with more unspoken history than 100 field reports. The plateau was exactly as they remembered it, frost-bitten wide as regret still echoing the sounds of 100 battles fought by people who stopped asking why. A delegation waited. Arctyron elders, coalition negotiators, even a few neutral observers wrapped in layers of thermal discretion. Virel glanced at Selari. "We're the entertainment." "No," she said, stepping forward. "We're the memory." The crowd parted for them. A single podium stood at the center, carved from reformed crystal. It pulsed faintly with ambient heat. Selari stepped up first. "We were taught to fear warmth," she began. "Taught that touch weakened discipline. That connection fractured chains of command." A few Arctyron elders looked away ashamed. She continued. "But warmth is not weakness. It is memory. And when I offered it to a human, I was not surrendering, I was preserving." Gasps. A pause. Then Virel stepped forward, hands in his coat pockets like he was giving a TED Talk with poor lighting. "I used to think peace came from force, from leverage, from better guns. Then a prisoner told me she'd keep my bed warm, and it stopped being about tactics. It became human." Somewhere in the crowd, someone snorted. Someone else cried. Always a mix. Later, as the delegation broke into task groups and cautious optimism, Selari and Virel stepped away from the cluster. Back toward the cliff. Same place she had once knelt in the snow. He turned to her. You ever think how weird this is? I think about little else. You could have killed me back then. You could have done the same. And instead we held hands on a glacier and rewired galactic diplomacy. She smiled. I'm sure someone will write an opera. They sat side by side on a thermal bench, the sky turning violet with dusk. And for the first time, they didn't talk about peace or war. They talked about cacao recipes, annoying pilot mustaches, and whether dogs from Earth would hate snow as much as Arctyronians pretend to. When they left hand in hand. Not as soldiers, as story bearers. Back on Arctyron, winter had settled in like a familiar silence. No longer a threat, but a rhythm. The kind you dance to slowly with layers. Selari's home had changed. Once a barracks turned refuge, it now resembled something closer to a shared cabin. There were 2 mugs on the counter, a heater calibrated to Earth-human settings, a soft blanket with heat-reactive fibers that glowed when touched. Virel had once joked it looked like auroras you could nap under. He sat now beneath that very blanket, reading aloud from a translated Arctyron folktale about a snowwalker who traded secrets with a glacier. Selari lay beside him, eyes closed, listening. You skipped the part where the glacier eats the snowwalker, she murmured. I'm editing for warmth, he replied. She smiled. He placed the book down and ran a hand through her hair, metallic strands warmed by proximity, a trait of her people. Adaptive insulation, once designed for survival, now a strange echo of affection. You ever think we're boring now, he asked. Only when we start talking about curtains, she said. There were curtains now, blue ones, with little stitched snowflakes. Selari sat up slowly, brushing sleep from her shoulders. You know the Heatstone tradition. It's not just romantic. Oh, it's for those who guard something valuable. It says, even when I sleep, I protect you. He reached over to the bedside table and tapped their shared stone. It glowed faintly. You're very protected then. No, she said, leaning in. We both are. Outside, a soft wind passed through the pines. Not a warning, just weather. Inside, their world was warm, and as the stars began to bloom in the Arctyron sky, Selari whispered the line that started it all, half teasing, half sacred. Don't kill me, human. I'll keep your bed warm. Virel laughed, pulling her close. As long as this planet has winters, you'll never be cold again. We often imagine peace as a sudden burst, a treaty signed, a war halted, a flag raised. But more often, peace creeps in quietly. It settles into routines. It curls up beside you on cold nights and asks, what do you want for breakfast? For Dax Virel and Selari Nox, peace didn't come from victory. It came from vulnerability, from offering warmth in a world built to reject it. Their story isn't just about interspecies diplomacy or ancient machines humming beneath the snow. It's about something far simpler and far harder. Trust. Trust that someone will hold your memory like it matters. That even across species, across war, across loss, warmth can mean more than comfort. It can mean future. So yes, maybe an alien warrior once said something strange on a battlefield. Maybe a human commander decided not to pull the trigger. And maybe 2 enemies built something better than empires, a home. That's the story you've heard. That's the memory they chose to make. And if you're still here, still warm, still listening, then maybe it's working.